So it's good to be with you this afternoon. It was turning out to be a beautiful day. It started out a little raspy, but it's turning out to be a beautiful day. And as I mentioned at the beginning, with this day being the World Day for Migrants and Refugees, this has been an issue that's been very close to this parish. I'm now starting my 6th year as pastor, and when I just started, I think it was my first year, if I'm not mistaken, we really had that whole discernment about the Holy Family Apartment, which has turned out to be a real true blessing for our parish. So the whole issue of migration and immigrants has been a really important issue for us as a parish. Catholic social, and I think as I was reflecting on this, reflecting on the issue of Catholic social teaching on immigration, it really opens up many aspects of the gospel that are very central. Catholic social teaching, which is rooted in the prophetic tradition of the Bible, has always insisted that one of the hallmarks of our faith is to welcome the foreigner. So many of the Old Testament passages, especially in the prophets, talk about welcoming the foreigner. And obviously throughout the history of humankind, there has been migration. From the very beginning, there has been migration. And that's especially true today. And as a people of faith, I think we would have to have a very stony heart not to be moved with compassion at all the people at our southern border from Haiti, the poor people from Haiti with, the political instability, the assassination of their president, hurricanes, earthquakes. I mean, my goodness, and they're seeking refuge. Also refugees from the horrific circumstances in Central America. One of the members of my community and I have been watching some of these basically docudramas about the drug cartels in Central America and Mexico. How people suffer, incredible. The refugees from Afghanistan, I think, touch all of our hearts. And again, I think it's just, and that's not mentioning Syria and so many other places. There's so many, I think that the human response, not only the Christian response, but the human response when we see a brother and sister and the human family just suffering. So I think our human response is, how can we help? And to realize that migrants are our brothers and sisters in God's family. And, even if we cannot help everyone, and obviously we can't help everyone, but we should do what we can and certainly treat all migrants with respect and decency and with compassion. So even though, true, we can't let every refugee in the world into the United States, that's true, that's sort of obvious, but we should do what we can and treat people with compassion, not treat them like cattle. Those pictures on the southern border where people on horseback like cowboys, like they're rustling cattle with the Haitian refugees. It's very, very sad. Pope Francis tells us in Fratelli Tutti that our response for the arrival of immigrants and migrating people should be fourfold. First of all, to welcome them, protect them, promote them, and integrate them to the extent that we can, and especially those that are fleeing grave humanitarian crises. It's not just people seeking a better life, although there's nothing wrong with that, but a lot of these people are really fleeing grave humanitarian crises. For those who are not recent arrivals, people who've been here for a while, I think that Pope Francis says we should try to integrate them into society, try to find a path towards citizenship where we can all live equally as citizens of this country with justice and liberty for all. Pope Francis asks us to reject the term minorities, which tends to, in his view, engender feelings of inferiority and isolation. He reminds us that the arrival of people from other cultures is a gift to us. Maybe we don't always see that at first, but they are a gift to us. And migrants from other cultures bring many, many gifts. We experienced that in our parish with our Holy Family apartment family. They have been a real blessing for us. They have been such a blessing for us. They've been a blessing to our school. They're really inspiring good family people, people of faith. They've been just a true blessing. So for us, this is not a distant issue. And that being said, Pope Francis mentions that welcoming migrants is not just a utilitarian thing, that he calls us to a certain gratuitousness, open to others, even if they can't give us anything in return. And again, one of the things that Pope Francis stresses over and over, and I think is such a key point, is that everyone is a part of the greater human family, without whom we can't even fully understand ourselves. I think what we have, there cannot be any more us and them, us versus them. We have to move just to us, to we. I think that is really a challenge of our faith today. And that's not only for immigrants, but that might be for people from other political parties or other points of view. I think that, I've talked to so many people recently, that feel estranged from people in their own family. In fact, I just had a phone conversation this morning with a dear friend of mine who's a school sister at Notre Dame, and she came back from Rome, and she said she feels really alienated from her family over COVID shots and so on, and it's really sad. That's a very common reality. So how do we move to a sense of us and we, not us versus them? And that's a challenge for me too. And that we're all a part of God's family. Pope Francis tells us that social friendship and universal fraternity calls for the acknowledgement of the dignity of every human person as a child of God, created in God's image. So part of what this is based on is our faith belief that every human person is a child of God, made in the image of God. Made in God's image. So everybody has infinite dignity, and so every human being has a right to live with dignity, based on their dignity as a human person, not based on how useful they might be or on circumstances, but on the intrinsic worth of their being. And that's really what it means to be pro-life. The reason abortion is wrong is because it violates the dignity of a human life in the womb. But we can't stop, obviously, with life in the womb. We have to look at, the life of migrants, the life of other people, the life of disabled people, et cetera, et cetera. And love impels us to a universal communion, a love that transcends borders. Only love can move across borders and boundaries and cultures like a mighty river of love. I think that image that actually comes from St. Bonaventure, that love is like a river that, rivers don't stop at the borders. We're here at the U.S., we're here at Mexico, or we're here at Canada, or we're here at Minnesota. The rivers go across borders, and love is like that. It crosses borders. And this is an image. You guys are going to have to pay attention here. This is a little tricky. But for the medieval Franciscan, St. Bonaventure, I've been reading a book on Franciscan spirituality. I hope that's okay that I read something on Franciscan spirituality. But St. Bonaventure, a good Franciscan, he says that God is a circle where the center point is everywhere and the circumference is nowhere. Now bring out your high school geometry. God is like a circle whose center is everywhere and whose circumference is nowhere, so that everything and everyone can live happily and safely inside that good circle. Isn't that a beautiful image? I think it's a great image, and I used to like geometry. Our human family needs to learn how to live together in peace and harmony, all of us, without all of us having to be the same. Wouldn't that be boring if we were all the same? And I find this we're called to a very inspiring image and vision that gives hope. Whereas the us versus them vision that's so prevalent today, what does that lead to? Anger, discord, conflict. That's what that leads to. But the vision that we're all part of God's family, we're all brothers and sisters in God's family, we're all God's children, what does that lead to? That leads to hope and joy and sisterhood and brotherhood and peace and justice. So those are really two different visions. I hate to say, I think the first vision of us versus them seems to be the prevalent vision today. But that vision that Pope Francis in the gospel calls out, that we're all part of God's family, is such a more hopeful vision. And I guess I just want to put out as a challenge to all of us, including myself, which of those two visions are we going to choose?